Run it. Oh! Oh! Ooh! 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 Hold on. Skip fast to the beginning. Oh.
Then what? Why do you care how much money somebody has?
Is Ethan sick?
Because, well, first of all, I don't, but
I don't.
the real reason is not necessarily money, but more so how people make their money. And how people make their money being through capital accumulation is always going to work to erode this nation, the social democratic state that you're mentioning. And the example I will use is Europe. Because, like, if you look at European social democratic reforms throughout history, things that a lot of people take for granted, even the NHS in the UK, for example, is not immediately privatized, obviously, but it is crippled under conservative administrations deliberately, specifically so that they can inevitably privatize certain aspects of it. It's kind of like how the same neoliberal reforms under the Reagan era wanted to openly starve the beast, the American government, which is why Americans no longer have any sort of confidence in the government to do any kind of social amenities, any kind of offerings, right? Like, you understand, you and I, we both are in the highest tax bracket. We live in Los Angeles, California. We pay a fuck ton of taxes. We pay like European taxes, right?
Yeah.
And the reality is we both recognize that those taxes don't necessarily go to the places that we would love for them to be spent on.
Definitely.
Roads, schools, libraries.
But what's that have to do with social democracy? That, like, my utopian social democracy.
Well,
because all that money in this, situation, it does go to those places.
Because America is still a capitalist nation, just like all of these other countries are.
Yeah.
And in a capitalist nation, you are always going to have the influence of capital.
Well, let me ask you this then.
Okay.
In a socialist nation, on the other flip of the coin, wouldn't you also have a similar movement of people, a party of people wanting to move towards capitalism?
There will always be, yes, people
what's
who are
the difference?
Counter-revolutionary.
Well, not just that. I mean, there's a move because capitalism, social democracy. There's a certain level of individualism that you don't have with socialism, perhaps I would say, and so I would ask you, what's the difference? You're saying that social democracy nations the rich people are always gonna be trying to erode the system. That's an assumption, by the way.
Well, it's not an assumption necessarily as
it's just not. It's just not
descriptive in comparison to, like, I mean, it's descriptive if you look at how it has played itself out in Europe, where we.
And you're right. I agree. That's what they'll be doing. So I'm not even going to argue.
Even America had a lot of social democratic principles in the New Deal.
I'm not even going to argue that. But I do think that in a socialist country, like I said, there's going to be a sizable amount of people moving towards capitalism. So what's the difference?
They would kill those people. They would murder those people.
And they're also
they would murder those people. That's the difference between liberalism and illiberalism. In liberalism, you can have fascists like Donald Trump or socialist commies like Hassan that are advocating for everybody to move towards their ideology. But in any of their worlds, those people would be fucking murdered. That's the difference. Fuck, I wish somebody was giving Ethan real answers right now. That is the act. That's why so many of these guys have put him against the wall. The blood will run red or the streets will run red with the blood of landlords and blah, 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 blah. Like,
state mechanism of control, which exists in neoliberal capitalism as well. And this is actually an area where I very much diverge from other socialists.
Doubt it. You only diverge when it's politically popular to do so. Throw them on a tanky podcast and you're just as much a tanky as the rest of them. Don't ever trust a lefty. Don't ever trust a lefty when they tell you they're more liberal than the other guys. Or they'd ever, just like trusting a crypto Nazi or crypto fascist when they say, oh no, like we'd respect other people. It's the exact same type of thing. The exact same type of thing.
I would say, or even more orthodox Marxists, that I believe the neoliberal mechanisms of control, specifically, it's just
the
how do I
boogeyman.
describe it? Free market. Markets are better than
Free market. Neoliberal is free market. I think neoliberalism implies a certain type of disdain for especially far lefty movements. I think it implies a certain type of globalist capitalist agenda. So things like the World Economic Forum, the International Monetary Fund, a particularly hawkish view of foreign policy. I think this is what neoliberalism implies. I don't think neoliberalism is just markets. That's capitalism, but
Okay.
than the government at dealing with everything.
Okay.
So I think that there is two different, as reductive as possible, there's two different types of control. Control is always going to happen. This is what the state is there to do, right? Under liberal capitalist democracies in the West, you have a neoliberal mechanism of control that dulls the masses through commodities, gives you the false notion of choice. You feel like you have 32 different brands of Oreos, even though they're like owned by 3 companies that price fix.
that's
right?
neoliberalism is when all the Oreos are owned by 3 companies. Is that neoliberalism? Neoliberalism is when all the ice cream flavors are all at Baskin Robbins.
They basically control all matter of commodities, and those markets are completely captured. But
Captured? What do you mean by captured? As in,
there's this idea that there are, this endless, boundless amount of choices that you can choose from. On the other side, the more authoritarian mechanisms of control, which have existed
What's
in...
your opinion?
I like the neoliberal one. I think that even in a socialist state, you should still very much give the people the false notion of choice and
What?
make it feel like they have a say in the process while doing the bidding of... I mean, it's a pretty cynical worldview, but I think that, that's what states are supposed to do.
Let me ask you this.
And that will create a structure where there are significantly less people who are like, I hate the system right now. I don't feel happy. I don't feel good in the system that I exist under. So I should, do counter-revolutionary capitalist reforms.
Well, and likewise, I don't think there's that many people in Sweden or Norway who are saying, no, we need to move to a pure socialist because everybody there is provided for. I don't
True.
think there's a large. I'm speaking
True.
out of
No,
turn
you're
here.
absolutely
right.
right. You're actually 100% correct.
So like,
Some Orthodox Marxists actually hate the welfare state for this reason because the
why does Ethan tweak out so much? I believe that Ethan has Tourette's, so that's why you kind of see him make like weird jerking motions and sometimes, as that's part of his Tourette's syndrome.
welfare state is a continuation of capitalism by offering offering certain amenities.
seems like in that
The
case,
liberal capitalism has thrived and has created a structure where like the inherent contradictions that exist under capitalism that I think everyone would agree with, including yourself, those inherent contradictions become a little bit more muddied, and they never end up getting to a point where they converge and capitalism erodes into some socialist formation.
let me be, I guess, more specific. If you're in a socialist country, is there one party or multiple parties?
It depends. I mean,
Hey, let's look at Vietnam.
Because one party.
Hey, let's look at China. Oh, it depends. Imagine having to say it depends. In capitalism and neoliberal societies, you're given a false choice when all the ice cream manufacturers are really ran by 3 ice cream makers. Oh, how many political parties do you get in a socialist system?
Party's scary, right? Can we agree on that? A one-party
I would-
system is not a good system.
I think you and I would agree that
No. I'm just asking you. I don't care about the United States.
I think that there are different forms of governance, and the United States.
God, he's such a weasel. Does his audience see him weaseling? I think one party would be bad. Well, there are different forms of governance.
States is not that different.
I don't care about the United States. I just want to talk about a socialist.
I think that
country.
no matter what happens, the state does what the state is supposed to do. You can either
What a non-answer.
do it at the behest of your citizens because you genuinely, earnestly believe that like that is the best possible way of developing a society, or you do it at the behest of capital owners and capitalism.
So you're saying you don't think it matters if there's one party or?
I don't think it matters as far as I care about direct democratic participation in local in local
one
positions.
party systems with
How
socialism.
can you answer that way? Imagine saying, because the whole center point for the whole like quasi wannabe democratic cuck bullshit is that, well, democracy, what a democracy in the workplace. Now, after complaining that there are only 3 different Oreo makers, now you're going to complain that, or now you're going to make the claim that it doesn't matter how many political parties exist?
More communism has pretty much always been a catastrophe.
Yeah.
A humanitarian disaster.
No, I agree with that.
There's just so much risk in having one party.
I agree with that. I think that a multi-party system is obviously going to be better.
Oh, now he says it. A minute or two after bullying from Ethan, he finally says it. Okay.
Point is that it doesn't even matter if you have a parliament. It doesn't even matter if you have a multi-party system. The changes that are being made in one direction or the other are oftentimes incredibly marginal.
Yeah, that's how systems work, by marginal incremental change. Welcome to every parliamentary, congressional, government thing ever. Yeah, that's for stability. That's what you kind of need, incremental change. No country would work if everything was dramatically changing every fucking 2 months.
And the differences are not born out of like, the party disagreements. The differences are born out of like genuine material conflict, like even including like the Civil War. It's never like the kindness of people's or like one party of individuals being like, we are kind, we want to do good things, and the other side is bad.
Because you're not supposed to be kind and doing good things. You're supposed to be representing your constituents. Congress and parliament and executive leadership, it's not about kindness. It's about doing what the people that voted for you want.
And they want to do bad things.
So what I want to say was this then.
What?
If you're in a socialist country with multiple parties, and one of the parties is a capitalist party, which would surely exist,
Yeah.
what would you do if that party started gaining momentum? And it was clearly like people...
Oh my God, Ethan is asking such a question. You murder them all! Say it! You kill them all! You kill everybody. That's what the leftists do. That's what Mao did. That's what they did after the Bolshevik Revolution to other lefties. That's what you do in a leftist country. When you take over, you kill all the other people. That's what happens.
wanted that.
That's what the Nazis did when they took power. When they were working with the lefties, they killed the lefties there. Now the Nazis weren't lefty, but like, yeah, when you are an illiberal party, when you don't believe in liberalism and you gain power, the first thing you do is you kill everybody else that opposes you or has any actual parliamentary threat to you, parliamentary, democratic, whatever kind of threat, whatever governmental threat.
Route. They wanted that route.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
I think I would do what America has done. Not that.
Oh my God, he's such a pussy. How can you be this tall and eat that much chicken and be such a pussy-ass little fucking bitch? He's actually such a pussy. Can we get like some 4'8" midget here that Hassan can press so he can get some of his fucking confidence back? God, he's such a weak-willed individual. Oh my God. Say it with your fucking chest. Holy shit.
To the same
Which is
degree.
what?
Not to the same degree as like McCarthyist trials or anything like that.
So you would trial them? You'd convict them of crimes? You bring up McCarthyism, the guy that hunted down everybody for communism? Does Ethan know the reference of what you're saying right now?
But I would offer additional amenities to ensure that people are comfortable and happy, because I feel like any
But what do
kind
you
of
do if they're like, nah, fuck that, we're doing capitalism?
Yes.
if everything is given to you,
Yeah.
at that point, if every single thing is given to you, if all of your problems are solved, which I think we can both agree is not under capitalism and has not happened.
No.
If all of those problems have been solved, then there is no need for conflict of that regard.
But they're
It
saying,
should
no,
come
we
to an
want to do, because they're like, yo, this is a free country, right? Well, we want to do capitalism. We think the market should regulate the prices and shit. Like,
It will
we don't
always-
think the workplace should be socialized.
Okay, that's a great question.
And what about...
You have to ask why though at that point.
Oh my
Because
God,
Well,
he
people
won't
never can be
answer.
explained by why anyway.
Hassan won't
You know what
answer
I
the
mean?
question.
people are gonna be dumb. You're right.
It's like, you don't... It's just going to exist.
Hassan
you know
won't answer because the question is you would kill them. Just say it. That's what you would do. You would kill people who are opposing you in your illiberal regime. If liberals come up and you're illiberal, you would kill them. That's what you do.
Yeah.
And so if
Keep
the
it-
if the will of the people is to go back to do more of a social democracy, is that something that a socialist country should move towards, or should there be resistance to the government to keep socialism?
I think the resistance should be akin to how capitalist governments have resisted historically any kind of socialist movement, not to that same degree of violence, but I think that yes, the solution to that would always be education and
Re-education camps?
offering more
Re-education?
re-education, certainly, yeah.
Somebody give me the clip of that one fucking loser who's like, we would house our comrades in re-education camp. Somebody please give me the fucking clip. Please give me the clip.
I know that that's like a
Let's put
trigger
them in
word.
camps.
No, not like that. I know there's a
Oh, not the camps. Oh, no.
trigger word because everyone goes, "Oh, re-education." What do you mean? Like immediately people think like, "Are
Well,
you
China
talking
does
about?
that.
Are you talking about like resident schools? Are you talking about
China has
Xinjiang?" Yeah,
re-education
100%. They
camps.
do. They do it. They did it in Xinjiang, which I
isn't
think
good,
was,
right?
No, I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it was good. This is something I have openly criticized as well. Like that's not good. The massive surveillance apparatus that they built in Xinjiang is not good.
So what would be
Even
good
though
about a socialist re-education camp for capitalists?
It wouldn't necessarily. I don't think it'd be camps. I mean, it depends.
Well, it wouldn't be cat. Oh my God, I don't hate him. I don't hate Hassan. What I hate are all of the mind-numbingly retarded fucking fans that can watch him squirm like this and not think that it's the most. You literally have the fucking. You've got like the drunken Dayquil master over here, okay, Ethan, asking the most innocuous questions, and Hassan is acting like he's getting pressed in front of like a fucking Senate Judiciary Committee, and he's like under oath, and he's like committed like 50 million crimes he's trying to hide from the United States. Like it's actually appalling.
Depends on it depends on
camp.
crimes,
Yeah.
right? Like, are people committing crimes at the behest of this? Because if there's a socialist state and someone is doing like white terror, let's say, or someone is doing
Stealing
South
wages.
Korean style, purges of communists, which has happened historically in every country that America.
Fuck! I just exited this whole. My fucking keyboard! It's not my keyboard, it's my.
Yeah.
So, this inherent contradiction is at the heart of capitalism, and is how.
Sorry, hold on. We just skipped so much shit. This stupid. My synergy froze. Oh, this is the
But rather than a
This is the clip. Hold on. This is what they want to do.
abandoning the diagnosed or untreated mental illness will be substantially lower. It's a sad fact that some violent or predatory individuals may never be capable of entering back into society. But rather than abandoning these people, we must do our best to give them the best possible chance at recovery and reform with the hopes of eventually re-entering society. In situations where re-entry does seem possible, care must be taken to monitor and assist these reformed individuals to preempt relapse or deception and to ensure that the patient successfully merges back into wider society. Reactionaries and counter-revolutionaries would be treated in a very similar manner. How we deal with former capitalists, fascists, and other such oppressors will be one of the great tests of anarchist society. Great care must be taken to treat them compassionately and humanely, giving them every opportunity to join our society as active and productive comrades, starting by treating them like any other comrade with special circumstances. Rather than ship deposed class enemies off to inhumane gulags or otherwise seek out revenge, they should be placed in reform centers where they are able to live in comfort and benefit from counseling and education, teaching them about the benefits of our new society. Some may never be willing to give up their abuses, and these die-hard oppressors would need to be secluded, perhaps indefinitely. But capitalists and reactionaries who demonstrate a willingness to re-enter society on equal footing should be given every opportunity to learn, grow, and eventually rejoin our community in peace.
Bro, somebody link this to Ethan. That's what Hassan wants.
As well would probably be a lot better than like a prison structure where they have slavery like in the United States of America.
I'm still a little bit confused about the ideal mechanism of a socialist country, where people still have individual freedoms to like form, to assemble,
But not
and it can also be
capitalists.
like, yeah, I'm a capitalist, so what? And we're trying to grow our movement. I don't understand the organization of the socialist free country, because it seems to me to have a socialist country, there needs to be some amount of dampening of,
Freedoms. Yes, that is illiberal. Correct.
rights.
Well,
Because, like, for what I
yes
said.
and no, because
Yes
my
and
point is
no.
always the same. It's that this is a constant. This is consistent. What you're describing is consistent with the American formation. It's consistent with capitalism. It's just a reality that will always exist. Violence and who gets to do violence is an inherent part of politics, because politics is,
Violence.
at the end of the
Ooh.
day, a distribution of resources and a distribution of violence. Who gets to have what resources and who doesn't have the resources as a consequence of that. And if they do something to get those resources, what the state will be able to do. The state has a monopoly on violence across the board, no matter what happens, right? I'm not an anarchist. A lot of anarchists will get mad at me for saying this, but the state should have some level of a violent mechanism, because
Well,
no
there's
matter what
wars and
happens,
stuff,
and there's
yeah.
different forms of violence as
Yeah.
well. The structural violence of poverty, or direct violence in the form of military boots on the ground military warfare, imperialism, police violence, police brutality. These are all different forms of violence.
There will be some exertion of force required
Yes.
to maintain a socialist country.
Yes, not just a social country, any country.
Sure, any country.
Yes, I agree. Until we reach a point of
mass
I guess,
education where everybody is.
until we
Bing
reach a point of
chaling.
production,
Bing
and
chaling.
our productive output has gotten to a point where it's so streamlined and so organized that there is no need for a state. But I don't know if we will ever be able to get there, where the state withers away. We have a classless, borderless, moneyless society.
Yeah, I mean, if it is, it's not in a long time.
Techno-communist.
It'd have to be like post World War III or something. Let me ask you, I guess, another angle here. Worker exploitation seems to be at the heart of socialism and
These
communism.
young socialists want
And
to
so I
overthrow
wanna ask you this
capitalism and
question.
usher in an authoritarian socialist state because the aesthetic is cool.
Cool.
Employee is fairly compensated, and by fairly I mean that factors like work, compensation, they're being paid well beyond the means of living. They can afford comfortable housing, food, pleasure, vacation, savings, all the things people would want to do with money. If they're provided in all those ways that we see as important, is that still exploitation?
In the Marxian sense,
Yes.
yes. In the capitalist sense, no. Capitalism is seen.
So Mark, when you say Marxism, you're talking about socialism.
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
Okay.
So, in the Marxist perspective, under Marxian economics, Marxist theory, exploitation is not a good or bad thing. It is just a thing that happens.
Okay.
And it goes back to something I've described many, many times over, which is that there are two classes. There is the labor class, the wage laborers, the proletariat, and the bourgeois class, the capital owning class, right? And these two classes have two inherently contradictory interests. You work jobs when you had a boss and someone was paying you, and you have been a boss, so you have gone through both of these stages. So as someone who worked in a job, as a wage laborer, as a W-2 employer, 1099 contractor, you wanted to work the least amount of hours for the most amount of pay.
Wow.
That's understandable. That's like perfectly reasonable, right?
Yep.
Like you want more money and you want to work less hours. You want to have more freedom. Your boss, on the other hand, wants you to work the most amount of hours for the least amount of pay, like that they can get away with.
Yeah.
So this inherent contradiction is at the heart of capitalism and is how commodities are produced under a capitalist mode of production. Now, when you have this imbalance, those who do have capital end up always being able to pay you much less than your actual
So
output.
that is what's happening now.
Yes.
My question is, in a situation, as I outlined, where the employees are fairly provided for, which I outlined before, is that when I say exploitation, I mean, like, I think that also has a vernacular, like when the ruling class is committing some kind of harm or injustice on their workers.
No, it's beyond that. You could be paying your employees fairly and still engage in the act of exploitation.
So then, because I don't want to get caught up on that,
Essen
because you're
has
saying
to see the writing on the
exploitation
wall.
is neutral by its
Yes,
definition.
exploitation
well.
in the Marxian sense
This
is not
brutal.
good or bad. It's just descriptive. A lot of what Marx has talked about with
But so
respect
what
to
does he mean
capitalism
then-
is descriptive.
Because what does he mean then when he goes the exploitation of workers? Clearly, he wants to end the exploitation of
Yes,
workers.
of course.
So is it still exploitation of workers if they're fairly provided for?
Yes,
It is.
because the fairness in this regard is not met on the metrics of like living standards, but instead on the metrics of what their output is. So when and this gets into the labor theory of value,
Excuse me,
right?
goddamn.
The labor theory of value, which is different than marginal utility, which is what we use currently when we ascribe when we say this is this much, like something is this valuable, right? Ice cream is $4, but if it's really hot out, maybe ice cream is $5 because, well, there's a little bit of scarcity on the supply, but the demand has gone up. So now ice cream is more expensive. Whereas from a Marxian perspective, the value of that ice cream is stable. It's just what kind of labor went into the production of it. What were the resources used to make that ice cream? What kind of capital was put into the ice cream factory?
So even
all
if
of
the
that,
employee
and then also the moving part.
What
in
if it's like really hot outside and the employees have to work harder that day? Wouldn't the cost increase?
that situation would be the labor of it.
If the employee is extremely satisfied,
Yeah.
and they feel well provided for, I mean, in a sense, it's like, who are you to tell him he's being exploited?
Well, you're
Again, I
you're
know
saying
you
that
want to
again
get caught up on
because
that,
it's
the
not-
definition
because
of that word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's what I would say in that situation is this, right? Relying on the magnanimous nature of your boss
Yeah.
and hoping that like your boss doesn't succumb to greed and choose to change certain things about your workplace conditions can be great. And there are people like yourself out there who are, as far as I understand, pretty good bosses, right? But that is never going to be that's never going
Like
to be the
yourself.
constant. That's never going to be the case.
But in social democracy,
Yeah.
you set up the bumpers, you set up the systems where
Yeah.
they have to do that.
Well,
that's the bare minimum they have to do.
Well, and then we go back to the erosion of the amenities. That
I don't feel like that's a strong enough
regulation.
argument to say socialism is better.
No, as long as there is some kind of capitalist compensation in any sort of sector, they will always choose to monopolize. This is what most companies, like this is what every company does. When they become a company, a corporation, their goal is to inevitably become a monopoly. You can do that by rent seeking.
Well, so what? So what? If they still have to follow the rules.
Well, no. When you are becoming a monopoly, you are either engaging in horizontal integration and expansion, or vertical integration and expansion, mergers, acquisitions, and what Amazon has done, for example, in e-commerce is a great example of this. And when you get to that point, especially under a capitalist state that still has market reforms, you end up using the additional capital that you've accumulated in the form of profits from your workers to lobby the government and erode the safety nets.
But you're talking like it's a guaranteed. And again, I go back.
It's been a guarantee every single time.
And it's been a guarantee by the same metric that any socialist country devolves into disaster. I mean, it's not fair to put that out there like it's just given. Because on the other flip coin, you can say, this, like I mentioned, socialism. There's going to be people moving towards capitalism.
So socialist nation states,
it's too hypothetical.
Socialist nation states, however, historically, most of them at least, have not eroded or been destroyed due to like people who are just like, I want to be capitalist. Usually those people are being goaded or supported, facilitated by a much more powerful nation.
Nobody could naturally desire free markets or liberalism. They always have to be externally motivated for it. Oh, okay.
That is using the inherent greed to their advantage to cause divisions. But the real material issues in socialist nation states, historical socialism, real socialism in the real world that has happened, has always been due to mishaps, famine, or the government exercising too much authoritarian control.
Yeah, you can say the same thing.
These sorts of things are the real reasons as to why socialist nation states have failed, not necessarily their economic mode of production switching over to a more labor-focused economy. And then also, there are so many different types of socialist developments, like a socialist mode of production, that there is no like one absolute perfect one. And I'd be a liar if I told you I know which one it is. You know what I mean?
So go back to the original question. Let's just ignore this theory that in social democracy, and I'll say this, obviously we have antitrust laws that are not good, that are not been effective in the least bit.
Yeah,
but it's
I would
also
ask
something
you why.
you can regulate.
No, but I would ask you why.
Well, because our government is super corrupt.
Why is the government corrupt?
Not
Because people are inherently flawed.
You think the government's corrupt because people are inherently flawed? Corruption in that sense, I disagree with you there.
Some people, not all people. That's another thing I said. People are inherently greedy and people lost their mind. Some people are. Actually, I want to talk about that at better length, but go ahead.
That's actually a great take as well. We can cover that as well.
Yeah.
I always butcher this quote, but I forget who it was. It might have been Mark Fisher, might have been someone else. But assuming that greed is inherent in human nature under a capitalist organization of the economy is like assuming the black lung is inherent in human nature if you work at the fucking coal mine.
See, that's not a good analogy.
Because, no, you're
in my
right.
opinion.
Greed is a part of it. Self-interest is a part of it. Not greed necessarily, but self-interest is a part of human existence. Why we have built societies, and how we've done it. However,
is a biological survival mechanism.
However,
if we didn't have self-interest, we wouldn't survive as a species.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
You're absolutely correct. My argument always, and many Marxist arguments actually, have always been around individualism and self-interest, and how socialism, as a matter of fact, creates more opportunities for individual liberties for the person. It's only been sold and told to people as though it is, this gray, brutalist architecture, city blocks. You have to, do your government mandated coal mining job or whatever the fuck. But the ultimate goal has always been to open up more individual liberties. I'll give you an example of socialization that you and I both agree with, right? Healthcare. Nationalized healthcare or socialized medicine in general gives you more liberties as a person that you can actually leave your job if you fucking
that would
hate
happen
it.
in a social democracy as well.
Yes. However, like I've said, there has to be the countermeasures in a social democracy the capitalist forces are significantly more powerful because ultimately the state is still operating as a capitalist state. That is still the norm.
So I think we're having like a kind of just like a disconnect, or not a disconnect, but maybe at an impasse on that idea. But what I'll say, I want to give you a specific example because this is interesting to me. Let's just take this workplace as an example because we're all familiar with it. So I started my career 10 plus years ago, and I was successful by myself with 0 employees.
Yes.
I made a lot of money. I did well for myself, And then, 5 years ago into my career, I made the podcast, which obviously you all are watching now. So let's say we go back to 5 years ago when I hired Dan as a freelance. You started as like a consultant.
Yeah, or a freelancer. Yeah.
And obviously you moved to full-time, and I'll get to that.
Yeah.
So he started as like a freelance consultant. So what would be a fair way of compensating him for that?
Ooh, employment under socialism. Uh-oh. Good luck.
In your situation, it's like, what is the most like socialist way of doing it? Is that what you're asking?
Well, yeah, because that's what we're talking about, right?
It would be profit sharing. What
So
that means is
Profit sharing is not really socialist, but that's not the worst answer you could give. That's not the worst answer you could give.
So this is interesting.
So
Hold on.
This is interesting. You're right.
Yeah.
This is actually the most difficult aspect, in my opinion, of like
The most difficult aspect of socialism is figuring out how to hire people.
trying to create the most ethical way of existing under a capitalist organization of the economy. While
It's not hard under capitalism to exist as a socialist, by the way. You can organize a company in whatever structure you see fit. Nobody's keeping you from doing otherwise.
you are also productive.
Would there be anything better? Technically, a more socialist way would be if somebody wants to work for your company, they need to buy into the company so that they're cooperative owners, so that as the company increases or decreases value, which is going to be relational to the labor that they put into it, you as an employee get to enjoy the benefits of that. That's the fruits of your labor, is the increase of the value of the company. And then because you have a part ownership in it, you get to increase your ownership stake as well, basically, yeah. Isn't that profit sharing? No, profit sharing is when you're paid back. Profit sharing is not an equity stake in the company. That's just like a reimbursement for a good year, a cut of the revenue.
And you're
Royalties versus equity.
you're doing like an owned and operated media company where you are the product.
So I hired Dana as a consultant.
Yeah.
Just to help us out to get things.
And I have hired
beautified.
people as well.
So then I'm profit sharing with him. How much profit am I sharing with him?
So the way I do it, and I think this will be this is instructive for many others as well. The way I do it, like the most ethical way to do it, is basically
What Hassan does is instructive for others. Oh my God. Before, now on that Tanky show, he's like, bro, we're just like fucking YouTubers. We don't do shit. But now when Ethan is pressing him, well, hold on. I'm going to act in a way that's instructive to other socialists. Now he's got to be like a fucking role model. Okay. What do you want? Hold on. Hello? What's up?
Dude,
Hi?
I have two things to say about Hassan and what he's saying.
Okay, go for it.
I think one of the I think the reason he supports these like Marxist ideas is because he's a money-hungry, fame-hungry jackass, and he just doesn't like the idea of people making more money than him. And these sorts of Marxist viewpoints would just create a society where other people can't out-earn him.
Okay, that's definitely a take.
Yeah. Secondly, like the Marxist theory of value is fucking stupid. Like what Hassan keeps doing and what a lot of Marxists do is they ignore the fact that labor itself is a commodity. And I think you pointed it out before that if it's really hot out and employees are working harder, that would like basically increase the cost of their labor. You know,
Sure, although big like labor theory of value guys are going to have ways to account for this, but yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I'm sure you're part of the Ask Yourself community, right?
Not exactly. I don't really hang out in his Discord.
Oh, because I know they've got a couple of big LVT guys or LTV guys that will sit there and argue about Marxist shit. So, but I don't know. Okay. All right, I'm going back to listen to this.
Okay, take care.
to make an assessment. Sure, there's market considerations on the one hand, like what the normal wage would look like, but that is like the minimum. You know what I mean? That is like the minimum. That is the worst possible amount to pay someone in the form of wages, in my opinion.
Okay.
So you have the market considerations on the one side, which I don't necessarily care too much about. On the other side, you have your productive output, right? Let's say you were making $10 before Dan came on, and now that Dan came on, you're making...
That wouldn't be measurable metric.
No, I know.
Wow, the DJ, thanks for gifting 5 tier 1 subs.
Oh, I know. I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
I know. Which is why I'm saying it's a tricky situation.
It seems almost impossible.
Yeah. Well,
Ask yourself molding. Wait, over what? 1 month ago. Why do you even have this as ready to link?
And give you mods so you can.
I'm listening. I'm
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Fuck, dude. Are you fucking retarded or something? Do you hear me speaking? Stop talking! Avi, sorry. I gave you mod permission, okay? If this look, just for the record, I know that you don't want to be an ass and overmute him, but it's no fun for anybody to listen to the conversation if every time the smart person talks they get interrupted by some fucking retarded shit, okay? If he's cutting you off, please just like don't hesitate to mute him and speak over him so we can actually hear what you're saying.
So what I would appreciate here is when I ask a question, like, it is the case or it is not the case that there's more to your view specifically that you've come to defend, start off with the yes or no. Like, yes, there is more, and here's what the more is, or no, there's not more. Like, you can start with the yes or no and then go into, like, the explanation. So, from what I've written down, is there more to your view as it pertains to what you've come here to defend? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Now,
Okay.
Well, technically, the other side is also very cruel, but we just like have
that's
normalized.
not true, because in social democracy, people are fairly compensated. It's not cruel, in my opinion.
No, there's. I don't think. I think
Well,
we
people
think
could be
of social
more or
democracies, we
more
think of social
fairly,
democracies-
less fairly compensated, but like generally speaking, they'd be more fairly compensated than what you would see today.
Yes, in
But
comparison to the United States of America, which technically would be a mixed market or social democracy, social democracies in other countries, there is better compensation
So here's the unintended consequence of that.
due to regulation, government regulation.
If I'm just hiring Dan to come in and help me with cameras and stuff, and I have to cut him in on profit share, people are not going to hire as many people. They're going to think a lot more before they bring more people on.
Well, can I just chime in real quick? Just to clarify this point, are you still talking about the period of time where I was working as a contractor?
Yes. I haven't gotten to the full time yet. Well, we're going to move to that.
Right. I will just say that at the time, I was essentially operating as my own business as well, because you weren't my only client at the time.
Right, okay.
I did that professionally for a lot of people, and you were one of many people that I would come and do shows with until you offered me a full-time thing. So just because we're using the specific example, I just wanted to clarify that, because I think that matters in what the dynamic was when we were initially working together.
I don't think that matters in such that I'm more focused just on the profit sharing.
So the reason why I was bringing up
the implications on to a business and business owner of that.
Okay, but the reason why I was bringing up the revenue is because let's say you were making you're making $10. Dan comes on, now you're making $15.
Yeah.
Right. Dan has brought in $5 extra of revenue for you, and I think that the best possible way to engage with that would be to cut Dan in on like offer Dan living wages plus whatever Dan has brought in the form of revenue.
Here's a big problem.
And that moves into direction like you make, and then later down the line you make.
Imagine ever trying to track this shit ever. Imagine you bring in Dan, and what Dan does is he helps your people schedule appointments more efficiently. So Dan comes in, you were making $1 million a year, now you're making 1.2 million a year. But it's not just because Dan's like scheduling people, those other people are also doing more work. How the fuck do you ever track this type of value add? How would you ever do it? Like with more, imagine doing this with 3 employees, let alone like 100.
Like $100,000, and
It moves with
now, Dan is moving with it as well.
Here's where this seems more like it's a nice theory, but like in application, it makes no sense. Who decides how much value he's brought? How could you possibly decide that? If my show is growing, Dan joins, and let's say, I now I'm making $15, but the show was organically growing. How can I attribute all 5 of that to Dan?
You're absolutely correct on this as well. This is a big weakness.
50-50 with him?
This is something that I do not have an answer for either, which is why, like I said, you make do with you try to do your very best.
Can I be? This seems like a big problem to say you don't have a solution for. If you're
hiring employees, you don't know how to do hiring. That seems to be a pretty, and this is the whole central part of your theory is better employment. That's a pretty big issue. Like
for a socialist society.
I agree, which is why I always.
It doesn't seem like it's ready.
Well, can I just chime in on this? This isn't theoretical. There are lots of companies that do profit sharing.
I do this.
Not like this, homie. What major company does profit sharing like this? Companies might give you stock options or even like allow compensation in the form of stock. That's the closest you're gonna. Some companies might do bonuses. Some companies might pay on commission, but like profit sharing like this, no.
I know, but it's not like. But like, let's say this,
and they have various methods of how they do it.
The way
there are ways to do it that make sense.
I do this,
but the way that socialism does it in the purest sense is like Dan joined 10 to 15. Dan gets half of the 15.
So
that's his
Ethan,
labor.
this is if we're talking pure
Hold on,
theory.
what's that?
If we're talking pure theory,
Yeah.
I would rather have an imperfect structure that still
It's
absolutely
not
offers
perfect.
better.
It doesn't work.
Well,
if you don't know
the
how people
capitalist-
get paid, how does it even work?
The capitalist structure also is imperfect in the exact same
Well,
way.
it's functioning at least.
Yes, I know, but the idea that like the other structure would not function is not correct. Especially when we're telling you that even under a capitalist organization and economy, there's plenty of different ways of doing
But
this.
there needs to
one
be-
of the most successful ones that I also have is a cooperative, right? I have a cooperative, collectively organized podcast, for example, where we just split it 5 ways regardless. Obviously, my output in that situation, given that I am the host with the largest audience, would significantly outweigh my producers, for example, who could be paid with a very fair, very fat market wage, right? Market wage plus market wage times 3 is what I could pay him, and it would still be significantly less than what he gets paid now.
Yeah.
Because we're cutting him in 5 ways. We're splitting everything 5 ways.
Yeah.
And that is a perfectly viable way to do it because
I think that's very generous, but I don't think you should be forced to do that.
I think that
I think you should be forced to pay him what we've determined as a minimum wage, where he can live in where he lives in a comfortable state.
yeah, I
And I
don't
don't
agree
think
with that.
and I don't think
And
that
it's
it
not,
prevents
goes
people
beyond,
from being
it goes beyond wages too.
generous.
It goes
either.
beyond wages as well. There's also another aspect of this that many people fail to consider, which is decision making. So there's also the structure of decision making, the structure of autonomy. When we are setting up the time for when we are going to shoot the podcast, like everyone has to be on board with it. It has to work around every single person's schedule. These are all scheduling conflicts exist usually, but it's like in good faith, every single person is like giving their most, giving their all, and it ultimately, I think, creates a pretty solid product.
Let me ask you. So, do you acknowledge that in this socialist theoretical country, where I go from 10 to 15 and I give Dan 15, hypothetically for any worker joining, that I, as a business owner, I would be less likely to be hiring people,
Certainly.
and that's not good, is it?
No, I don't agree with that. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing at all.
Because like I don't know, because like I've gone through a lot of people that did not work out, and they were hired on like let's say
You still fire them.
exploratory. So is it at will employment in this situation?
In this
I can just
structure,
fire them?
you can still, of course, like you can still have issues with an employee and fire them. It's ironic because like Japan, for example, is like the most capitalist country on the planet, and yet in Japan they have this like very unique culture where getting into a place of business is very difficult. But once you actually have made it into the corporation, they don't fire you. They can't fire you. They never fire you. What they do is they ostracize you and make you into a social pariah within the company and try to get you to quit.
Is it because they're trying to avoid paying some kind of severance, or is it just
No, it's like
culture?
it's both cultural and if I'm not mistaken, it could literally
so
have
gnarly.
legal implications as well. But it works, right?
Okay,
It technically
well,
works.
But I'm saying, why is it? Hey, why
more
is it
better,
not a
more-
good? So as a business owner, I think the fact that I was not super hesitant to hire lots of people, find the crew that worked. I worked with a lot of people. Who were not compatible. So I was able to burn through enough people to find a team that worked, right?
Kyle,
and
stop
so
by.
if I was so hesitant to hire people because I have to profit share with them, I would do like a way more strenuous interview process. It would take way longer.
Yeah, you're making an argument for why it's stronger. Like you
I don't
lucked out
think
with
so
Dan.
at all.
You lucked out with Dan.
I don't think that's a good
thanks.
argument because, first of all, it's good that people can go try a bunch of jobs before they find one that works. And as an employer, it's good to be able to try a bunch of people till you find the right fit for employees. If I had to go through this strenuous process to find each one of them, this podcast may very well likely not exist as it does today. It might not exist at all.
I disagree with you on that for sure. I think that
Okay, why?
it's better to have a
Why?
strenuous process of ensuring that you
Even
have
for
the
like,
best possible
even
person.
for like the most entry level job.
Yeah, I think that it's
But then
perfectly valid.
doesn't that
And-
result in people not getting work?
Yeah.
Yes, it will.
So there's-
but then we're
Yeah.
talking about like an entirely separate way of organizing the economy.
Let me go back. Why is it better? Why is it better that I have to go through like extraneous
I mean, we're
full-on
talking about
HR
hypotheticals.
processes?
We're talking about hypotheticals
Yeah.
in this situation.
Yeah.
So it can I can just hypothesize that you found Dan. Not even hypothesize.
No, we're not talking. Well, we're talking hypothetically, but we're
Like,
talking.
you found Dan, so you clearly.
But we went through
were
a lot of
able-
people before we found Dan.
Yeah. Well, you could have arrived at Dan as well, is what I'm saying.
It would have
through
taken a lot
strenuous
longer, and the
process.
business might not have survived.
Okay. So
There was a point where the podcast almost got wrapped up.
yeah.
So why is it better in theory to have that extraneous of a hiring process than being able to kind of just people try things out?
This is only one aspect of it, but what you're talking about, like the extraneous hiring process, also would exist under a social democracy as well. It should exist in some form under a social democracy as well, like
Why?
some level of protection from being fired.
But so in social democracy, you're not rev sharing. So there's like this
Yeah.
big thing that you're like, I'm a business owner. I've created this business from my own sweat and blood and tears over the last 10 years, and I'm making a lot of money. I got to hire this guy who I don't know anything about, and I got to cut him in on my profits. That doesn't exist in social democracy. So the risk to me as the business owner is way
but
less.
it's much smaller to a much smaller degree because it's supposed to exist through unions. And once again, it's not just revenue sharing. Everyone always focuses on that aspect of it, but rev sharing comes in the form of benefits. Rev sharing comes in the form of like how much we invest in.
It'd be nice if we could talk to someone who knows the system a little more thoroughly, hence Vosh.
R&D, for example, or what kind of R&D initiatives we invest in. All of these decisions are made by a board.
Well, that's all regulated.
Fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders that is not regulated under social democracy. This is the major point of contention. What do you mean by rev share then? Because you see, in our example, like in Germany, they have a trade union representative that sits on the board of executives, but that's only one aspect of a larger board that is still representing the interests of the shareholders, those who own the company, who never have seen the company. They can, even globally own it, right? So having one vote in that situation is not as good, in my opinion, as having all of the vote, all of the power, making these decisions as a collective, something that kind of is not legally enforced here, right, in your structure, but you abide by because you're a nice guy. Many people
whose videos he reacts to without crediting them.
Nice.
People are not going to be like that. And I'm saying that we shouldn't rely on the magnanimous nature of law.
We're going back to this point because we don't have to with the right.
Well, even an example, let me ask you, when I mentioned Germany still yields terrible, still is susceptible to capital.
What you said one by one. He killed everyone who didn't agree with him. Yep. Took over every industry and bankrupted them. They burned every book that went against the brainwashing and militarized everyone to fight the neoliberalists.
Gotcha.
Let me ask you this.
Wait, yes, it is.
Germany arguably is.
Yes,
not as much as.
Okay, I don't know a lot about Germany, so I'm not gonna. I don't want to get into
America
that.
is a social democracy as well. The problem is, like, American social democracy is a laughable example of.
So let's
social
not use it
democracy.
then. But going back, why is it better? Because I don't think I ever got an answer. To have a strenuous hiring process.
Why is it better to have a strenuous? When you engage in commodity production with another person, I think it's perfectly valid to ensure that this person is not going to be like a scumbag and cheat you, fuck you over. I think it's good business practice, even in a capitalist sense, to ensure that the person that you're hiring is not like some fucking random dickhead.
That's just common sense.
And the more you
do acknowledge that. So you do acknowledge the hesitancy to hire people.
I do. I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad
I don't know what.
thing.
Okay, we'll move on.
I don't think it's a bad.
I guess a bit of an impasse again.
Because as companies grow, you have different people in different units that also are engaging in hiring. Like, it's just that workers now have more of a say in which direction the company should go, and that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
For me for like a week on my business I spent 5 years building. I don't want to give him a decision on where the company goes.
Yeah,
I think that.
Yeah.
Why should he have that right?
You know what I mean?
I'm not saying the janitor comes in and unilaterally makes decisions.
Not unilaterally, but why should he have any say at all? He's not risking any of it, right?
It's not how that works.
But I'm curious how it does work.
So it's communication. The other person is a human being as well. If you have a major disagreement, then you look for someone else to work in that position. This is how it works.
Okay.
The only difference in that situation is that you don't have the.
You're not going to get an answer, Ethan, because he has no fucking idea what he's talking about, and he doesn't even do this shit in his own practice. He doesn't even run his own businesses like this, like how he wants to legally mandate every other person run their business, even though there's nothing stopping him from doing this if he wanted to. He could absolutely run his businesses like this. He chooses not to because he knows it's a dog shit, untenable way of running shit.
Have the fear of like subsistence living at the other end of that bargain, whereas like you have better amenities, better protections, and therefore you're more comfortable.
You just mean good living conditions, because
the idea is
that's what I'm already saying. That I don't think that makes socialism unique, because we can provide good living conditions and benefits.
We can, but we haven't. Now that, by the way, one aspect of social democracy that we've talked about is the domestic one. We have yet to even uncover the other, much worse side of social democracies, which is resource extraction in the third world and imperialism. And that is a necessity.
Yeah, but homie, you haven't even addressed the basic employment shit. Why do you want to move on to foreign policy? Like,
under global capitalism, and that is the reason why we have the haves and the have-nots. On the domestic level, you believe that there's a regulatory agency that can make things more just.
I don't feel prepared to have a conversation about the third world stuff because I'm not super familiar with it.
Perfectly fine.
But like I can.
But you understand that like that's a part of how everything works.
So exploiting in the truest sense of the word is definitely what's been happening.
Even on a capitalist understanding, that's like hyper exploitation.
I mean, clearly, I think that all humans on this earth deserve rights and comfort and. And a right. You know what I mean?
It is funny though. Like one thing I will mention in the domestic, going back to the labor force thing, is that like we're so susceptible and so programmed under capitalist dogma that we refuse to see a world outside of it, and we're so captured in that worldview that oftentimes the number one counter against a socialist governance or democracy in the workplace or anything like that is always like, what do you want, the fucking janitor just came in yesterday to make these decisions? Like, no one said he's the CEO now.
I just want to understand how it works because you keep saying rev share.
That's your
rev share is only one component
of the janitor.
Rev share can be democratically assigned.
If the say what?
Okay, here's an example. When I first started the podcast, I was originally under Cast. It was fucking terrible. We quit. We started our own podcast, me and Will. We need a producer because we don't have that skill set. We need someone to change the cameras and maybe do a little bit of, someone to post the videos, do the captions, titling, thumbnailing, right? So in that situation, we looked for someone, we found someone, and we were splitting it 3 ways. We were splitting the revenue 3 ways, anything that we made, right? And even before that, I was also giving March money as well to make sure that he at least had a fucking, had a revenue opportunity even when we weren't generating a lot of revenue, right? So what did I do after that? The podcast grew. Fear and now has 5 cast members. We brought in Austin Show, my good friend, and Cutie Cinderella. And when that happened, us 3, we got together and we had a conversation.
Okay.
Do we need more hosts? Do we think that this will be beneficial?
Right.
Do we think that we will end up making, more revenue, generating more revenue in the long run?
Right.
Will we have people with unique creative ideas? Like, I care more about the creative output than anything else than revenue. I haven't even touched the fucking revenue that I've generated from the podcast. And we got together and we had a conversation. And I think that is a significantly more equitable and just and better way of doing business than me hiring March, me giving Will some money originally, like a fat salary, or maybe cutting in on the rev share for him, and then giving...
This works with this type of company because you've got 3 people that are all doing the exact same job, that are all public facing and doing the same type of thing. Now talk about a supermarket. Talk about a manager in a supermarket having to make decisions about what he wants to order with somebody that just works at a cash register, or somebody that just works at delivering product in the back, or somebody that just works at maintaining the HVAC. Like, that's the issue that you run into. Yes, with 3 employees with the same type of job, they're all doing the same thing with the same public facing thing, that all have about the same ownership. Obviously, this conversation is easy. This is the easiest form of understanding how to solve this type of problem. But do it where you've got employees that are all filled into highly specialized, highly differentiated roles that all have very different stakes in the company, right?
March like a super...
Also, all the people involved in this fucking podcast are already fucking rich. None of these people are negotiating for their food every night, right? It's also a way different thing too.
High fucking wage, right? Way higher than like the average producer, and then making these decisions single-handedly.
Let me add another aspect to your example. Let's say you need to hire a cleaner to come to the office.
Yes, cleaner. There you go.
She works for the podcast.
Correct.
She comes, she cleans the office. She works full time. How do you pay her?
Yeah.
The cleaner side of this is not like, I don't have an office like that, but the janitorial services,
theoretically,
in a theoretical situation where we have someone that needs to do it, we would also get together as a unit. Okay, the existing company would get together and decide what level, just like hiring the 2 other hosts, we decide what level of revenue cuts we are going to take from our 5% to give
you're making
to
her
the
a
other
job offer.
person.
It's not really that different than a salary.
And once they get that job, and there are many different ways of doing this, but once they get that job, and let's say they worked for 2 years, 3 years, then they have a say in the revenue sharing structure and the power sharing structure as well. Because it doesn't have to happen like instantaneously. A lot of people forget that.
Like, my problem is that in the socialist economy, this is being regulated by the government. People can get together now and decide to do whatever the fuck they want in their
Yes! That's why liberalism, that's why capitalism, that's why this form of economic and socio-political organization exists almost all over the world, is because it's so flexible. It's so flexible. That's one of the great things about liberalism. Liberalism can have fucking Sharia law Muslims living together with communists that want to grow food on a plantation, living together with hyper-capitalists that want to try to monopolize with vertical and horizontal mergers that can exist with that's one of the nice things about our current system is so many different types of people can exist. If you want to do this, if you want to make a company like this, go make it. Nobody's stopping you. But in your world, if you have a communist or a socialist organization of government, if I want to be a capitalist, you're going to fucking murder me. You put me against the wall and fucking kill me. Like, that's the difference.
Company. That's great, But in the socialistic economy, there's a rule that says you need to pay her X amount of rev share.
What you're saying is not true.
Okay.
You want to know why?
Yes.
Why?
Because you want a social democracy, which kind of exists, and market regulation exists under capitalist formations, and plenty of capital owners hate that. As a matter of fact, I would say universally capital owners hate any kind of market regulation, which is why they choose to erode it as best as they possibly can.
That doesn't even make sense. That's not even true. Hassan, that is in contradiction with both reality and your earlier stated position. Regulatory capture and the idea of enforcement of things of the government is actually one of the things that large companies can enjoy at a great level. There's a reason why Amazon willingly set their wages to $15 an hour without the government having to push it. You can argue that there are rents, that there are forms of regulatory capture where big companies actually love these types of regulations because these types types of regulations can force out smaller competitors. This doesn't even, but you know this, Hasan, because I'm pretty sure you were just arguing earlier that a lot of this regulatory capture is something capitalist organizations push for, that firms and businesses try to enact in the government. So he's like in direct contradiction with shit that even he stated earlier in this conversation.
I would say universally, capital owners hate any kind of market regulation, which is why they choose to erode it as best as they possibly can, or they use it to their advantage to create an artificial barrier of entry into certain sectors.
Oh, fuck, okay, that's good. He got the second part. All right. Vosh rant, early rant. Cut the stream there, August. Don't let him show them more.
I'm saying in a socialist economy.
Also, there's also an argument to be made that there has been international research done. Firms do prefer to operate out of countries where the cost of labor is higher and there's stricter enforcement of like labor laws and stuff, as opposed to other countries where you might have cheaper labor, but the country is less stable due to strife, revolutions, expropriation of shit, government going crazy, blah, 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 blah. So firms do appreciate some form of, I'll say regulation. It's not really that they prefer the regulation. What they really prefer is the stability that regulation tends to bring. That is true.
There's going to be laws.
Just like there are laws in a capitalist economy and capital owners.
Socialism, how I'm saying the government is telling you how much you need to pay the janitor.
That's not how that would work.
Then how would it work?
But it would be government.
Isn't that how is that functionally different than minimum wage in our society?
That's my point. That's my point.
Yeah.
Why
Okay,
do they?
well then-
why do? But socialism is much more radical. We're talking.
It's not.
Social.
It doesn't have to be.
Moving
I think
America,
It doesn't
moving
have
America
to be.
to a purely socialistic society. Instead of my thing is, I think social democracy is better than socialism. And you guys are explaining something that to me sounds a lot like something that we can already do without this huge undertaking of changing our economy from a capitalistic social democracy one to a socialism one. You're talking about a minimum wage. We already do that, and we can already do better with that via regulations.
But the reason why we haven't been able to is because, like, I think the best way to explain it is this way. Okay.
Okay.
You like capitalism with socialist characteristics. I like socialism with capitalist characteristics.
Yo, you just said that.
What does that mean? What?
So we're both social Democrats.
So that doesn't mean that I still believe that the government
Wait, what's
should
the
be.
difference now? You said you like socialism with capitalism.
The difference is, no, I said I like socialism with capitalist characteristics, meaning that the governing economy, like the entire economy, still revolves around a socialist mode of production where the workers are the owners. They own the means of production. They have they have a say in their benefits. They have a say in what happens in the company. And I can fire them whenever I want, though. Well, there will still obviously be protections against like unjust firings and whatnot, and there should be certainly.
There are now.
And there are now as well. Except
really good.
America is a great example of.
In California, there are really.
America is a great example, however, of like how there aren't.
Which how it shouldn't be, and it shouldn't be that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the reason why it's not that way is because we have capitalism with like laughable socialist characteristics.
Dude, I find it very interesting that you're saying you want socialism with capitalist characteristics.
Capitalist characteristics in the sense that it doesn't touch the means of production or the mode of production, but offers an abundance of resources and offers the idea that you have freedom. One of the major problems with former historic socialist projects have always been commodity production being streamlined on necessity and not necessarily silly things like lighter production, industries that revolve around making chocolate and coffee. Coffee was a major problem in East Germany. So like things of that nature that people need, I think those are things that we need to work on. And that capitalism, I think, has done a much better job at offering to people, and that has a very sedating influence on the masses. Consumerism.
I don't see what's so great and humanizing about hiring a janitor for 0.00015% of the company.
What do you? I don't understand. That's not what I said. You just made that assertion.
But we're saying there's a minimum wage. There's a minimum equity share that janitor would need to get.
Well, are you talking about in comparison to doing profit sharing model?
We're talking about a socialist minimum wage.
Right. But comparing it to a model where employees are cut in on the profit is what you're saying. Comparing that what we have now to that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I would just point out that, so first of all, you would talk about it a lot earlier about like, well, what companies do that. There's a lot of examples of bigger firms that do this kind of thing.
Okay.
A great one is Southwest Airlines. Did you know that they have a massive employee profit sharing model?
How does it work? What's the details?
So it's a once a year payment, and they look at how they did the last year, and then a certain percentage of the profits they distribute as bonuses to all of the employees. And it's fairly significant.
Dude, that's great. Like in a socialist country.
Then they can do that. Then let them do that. They can do that. That's great then.
Country, that's it? That's all you want? Because that's easy. I can, you know what I mean? Like what are you asking for when you're asking for socialism? Just a bonus fund based on profit? Because that's easy.
No, not necessarily, but Listen, I wasn't trying to make any assertion about that. I was just trying to give you an example of, you were asking earlier,
Oh my
like
God.
what companies do that.
I think
here's,
that's
here's a
awesome.
big one that does it.
I think that's awesome. And I'd even be in favor of regulating that and saying, yo, you need to put aside like 5% or 10% or whatever, I don't care, of your profits to distribute evenly amongst your employees. Is that socialism?
No,
Is
that
all
would,
it takes?
that would be some aspect of socialization, especially if it's like earned by the workers that have some level of collective bargaining.
It just seems so bureaucratic. I don't understand the workplace in your
Bureaucracy
world.
still is very much at the foundation of a bourgeois state as well. It's just that we
dude,
don't think
I'm
about
talking like this is bureaucracy on bureaucracy on bureaucracy.
No, I don't think it's
understand
different.
your workplace.
I'll tell
'Cause
you
if
this
that's
much.
not good enough, then what is? I don't understand.
There is, I think it's called People's Republic of Walmart. It's a really good book. And so like
title.
there was a genuine problem in the USSR with how to deal with crops and agriculture. And central planning, unfortunately, had limitations at the time because we did not have the computational power. One of the, ironically, like steps in the right direction was actually coming from Chile, which then got their own 9/11 50 years ago. But we won't get into that because, you know, socialism bad. But there wasn't enough computational power to implement centralized planning at that time effectively, and it led to plenty of issues, right? So, ironically, nowadays we have centralized planning inside of Walmart, inside of Amazon, and these companies are generating a ton of revenue that they could cut their workers into. Maybe
How?
they would be much smaller. Maybe they would be much smaller.
What's the
in
minimum
size.
that would make it socialist? That's what I'm curious about.
I don't think there's like an exact dollar value rather than, because you're looking for an exact dollar value rather than I'm talking.
Hold on. Somebody donated Crow Magnum Man. Hassan has never worked a real job. It's embarrassing lack of experience.
This year we've got more new music.
Okay. We've got Force and Load in the background, okay?
Talking about an entirely different way of thinking.
But there's the law. There's a law in a socialist country that says you must do.
I'll give you one example. I'll give you a good example from your life, right? Right now, you have Cam, right? Cam does wonderful goofs, gaffs, and Photoshop.
Slaps. We love Cam.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and
Let's give it up for
that
Cam.
nature.
Let's give it up for Cam real quick.
Yeah.
I love you guys. I love you guys.
So, technically, if you were interested in maximizing your
Hold
revenue,
up. Sorry. Whoa. What? We've got 2 minutes? We're on a strong run? Hold up. Hold up. Drama Frog's out. We don't do politics here. This is a Force and 24/7 reaction stream. He's set up. Okay, we just need a good perch. Are we about to crush?
Crafting. Crafting. Crafting.
Are we about to crush the juicer time? Is he ready? Is he ready to throw? What's he? Oh. What's he doing? He's doing the right things. Okay. He's doing what he's doing. Okay. We just need a perch. No juicer dragon. Minute and a half. He's got so much time. He's got so much time, guys. No juicer dragon. Come on. Come on. A minute and 20. Come on. What are we doing? What's it take? What is there a way to make it perch? Minute 10. 1 minute. Is there a way you know when it's perching? Is he perching? How do you know? Does he do a thing? A minute. Oh my god. Come on. What is the exact time it's gotta be? Is it 16:30? $16:38? Bro. How long does it, what is the average perch time? What?
Purge!
How long does it take to bed kill it? Like if he purchases at 20, is it good? He's got like 5 seconds? Bro, are you serious?
What the fuck?
Bro. You can't do it.
Game generating
Bro,
God Seed 0%.
what is this, man?
Generating God Seed 30.
Dude, this
generated
is
Dream Seed.
bullshit.
Hard day for Force and fans.
revenue what you could have done instead of hiring Cam was outsource it to Fiverr, or I don't know, get like some Filipino graphic design company. If you were one of those like TikTok guys out there who's like, I fired my entire workplace and like fucking hired everyone in Pakistan for 5 cents an hour. It's fucking sick. Like you could be one of those guys and do that. But the reason why you didn't do that is because you feel as though correctly that Cam yields better output. Hey, no.
Chewing?
She almost. I caught her.
Do it.
No.
You do it.
No.
Alfredo, you got to enforce the law on her.
No.
Alfredo has no interest.
Alfredo, you have a monopoly on violence
Go,
in this
what the
office.
dog? Sorry.
It's okay. A welcome
Welcome to
A welcome break.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please continue. How cool I am.
So if you don't do that, and there should be restrictions on that, certainly. Like there should be restrictions on being able to do that, being able to just like completely outsource your workplace. Those restrictions can come in a capitalist country in the form of tariffs, which many do. Protectionist trade or protocols exist globally, with the exception of the United States of America, which has some protectionist policies, but others that, most protectionist policies still benefit the interests of capital rather than the working class there. And trade partnerships have created a structure where like labor has been outsourced overseas. Our manufacturing capabilities have been completely outsourced. These are very bad things that exist exclusively due to greed that you understand under capitalism that needs to constantly be put in check. But a government that is designed, a government that's full of rich people, that is interested in their own wealth and wealth accumulation, that has stock options and trades like Paul Pelosi, and has that gets jobs for their family members in Goldman Sachs like Ted Cruz and many other examples, is never going to truly represent the interests of the working class, and is always going to put the interests of capital ahead of the interests of the working class. You will never be able to have a real democracy. That's the difference between a bourgeois democracy and a proletarian democracy, or a dictatorship of the proletariat, rather than a dictatorship of the capital owning class.
I just want to know how the socialist workplace works. It seems so nebulous when you talk about it.
It is.
Why is it? I don't think it's nebulous at all. I have a living, breathing, working example of it that I've given you.
No,
I know,
not
but
really.
like, there's got to be like a constitution that says outlines, or I don't know, whatever the fuck you want to write, right? There's got to be something, and it says like, or rule laws. It says, this is the minimum that a person should get from the company.
Yes.
And
it should be married to the output. It should be married to the productive forces. It should be married to the output. That should be pegged.
We talked about this enough, though. I don't want to bore
That should be
people.
pegged to the performance. And I think that is the best possible way to work.
I guess my problem on that is like, how could you possibly
enforce that?
No, not even enforce. How could you possibly even analyze that? Like, how much more how much more money are we making because the janitor comes in?
That's where we go to the Walmart example. That like we are already completely aware of that. We have we have actuaries, we have CPAs that are working in real time, making mathematical equations to figure out exactly what not to pay people technically. And they could be in a total social reorganization of the economy with a socialist dogma.
Okay. So
would work in the opposite direction.
Okay.
It's kind of like this.
Please, let's move to another topic.
Okay,
I don't want to bore people.
Wealth was one aspect of this, right? Like we already have property taxes, for example, in America, but we never make similar mathematical equations on capital gains, earnings that you make in the stock market. Wealth accumulation could work in the exact same way as property taxes, and yet we don't have any mathematicians working on that.
That's a good idea, but
and that's a great idea, right?
People probably do that in a lot of countries that aren't socialist.
Well, this is not just the distinction between socialism and whatnot. Because we talked about theory. We talked a lot about theory, but then we also have to talk about like what is possible, right? At least in the short term. And that is the reason why I always try to tell more rugged, more rigid, more passionate socialists.
That's where I'm coming from,
to cooperate. I know, to cooperate with people that are also perceived as radicals in America. Like, there's a reason why Bernie Sanders, who has been a socialist his entire life, basically has only implemented, instituted, or advocated for social democratic reforms in the United States of America. That's it. That's the only. The only reason why he's done that is so that he can inspire the masses and create an opportunity where workers have more control over their own lives and develop autonomy and inevitably develop class consciousness, creating ample opportunity for
so many buzzwords.
Believe in that sort of
Oh
thing,
my God.
socialist revolution.
Right, but that would never happen if the people were happy with their conditions. I feel like that would not happen. But anyway, so let me ask you this to peg this down even more. In a socialist workplace, a socialized workplace, certain jobs are still going to get paid more than others, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh shit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's still going to be class. There'll be class, right? There'll be class distinctions in a socialist.
No, the class distinction is not on pay. That's a
Class distinction
liberal
is on
understanding. That's actually
You don't
why
think people be like,
relationship
you're-
to ownership
I see people like you're the rich
of
dude in the
production.
Porsche, and I'm the working class dude in the
Great
Toyota.
question. Great question.
You don't think people will see that?
So social hierarchies are inevitable. There will be different kinds of hierarchies. What you're talking about is perfectly valid. But the class distinction in a socialist economy is completely abolished, because the idea is there will be those who have and those who have not, is what you're saying, at least in the interim.
Everyone will have. But there'll be people that have more.
Exactly.
People who have a lot more.
Yes. Some people that want to have more will be able to have more, and even a lot more. Yes. This is why I always.
They'll be part of a class.
This is why I always talk about because they have no control over the lives of others in that regard.
I find
I don't know why Hassan just said the class in a Marxist sense is your relationship to the means of production. So a class, like your class, like you're a worker. That means there's a capital owner that owns the capital that you work, that makes money off of the land or capital that you work. That's the only class in a Marxist sense. I think it's how they view class. It's not like rich, poor, whatever.
This idea that like people in a socialist country.
He doesn't know though. Hassan knows this. I think he's just either stressed or not giving the right answer for some reason.
Who have a lot more. They're able to make a lot more money. Somehow won't be influenced by power or influence or greed. That somehow in this society.
You're saying no matter what happens,
dispelled.
it will turn into capitalism. Is what you're saying.
I think
there will be.
These people are going to be influencing the system to benefit themselves.
Yes. The best way to stop that from happening is democracy. Democracy in the workplace, we cannot even imagine. Mark Fisher once said, it's easier to imagine the end of the world than to imagine the end of capitalism. And he was right. This is capitalist realism, because we are having this argument within the boundaries and within the cultural understanding of like existing capitalism today. And the reality is, we have no way, you and I, as it stands, I have no way of like helping you try to imagine a world where like each individual worker has more autonomy and does not suffer from alienation in their workplace, which would offer them plenty of more educational opportunities, plenty more free time. I guess the example you can point to in terms of different degrees of socialization would be a person doing contracted work at Uber, okay, to make ends meet in America, versus like a regular unionized factory worker in Germany. The level of autonomy that they have and the level of interest that they have and the level of engagement that they have in a workplace democracy or some form of it is drastically different than the contracted Uber employee. Their worldview is drastically different. Their democracy yields drastically different results as a consequence.
But let's be realistic. We're not going to spring into an alternate reality where capitalism doesn't dominate the world.
Which is why I always advocate
Which is part of why I'm saying.
No, but that's why I always advocate I always advocate for, in the interim, social democratic reforms that will yield more opportunities for for workers to organize. Now, of course, you can prove.
I want to follow this out a little further because I think it's interesting. So, in a socialist country, there's going to be people who make a lot more, and within a company, are they exploiting their workers? The CEO, the founder of a car company, he makes a lot more than the workers.
As long as it is democratically organized in the sense that like every single person is like, no, your productive output in this circumstance is significantly higher than us, then yeah, that would be.
And how do they determine that?
Through a democratic process.
They have like a vote for everybody in the company has equal ballot power?
Depending on like how long you've worked at the company and things of that nature. These are different formations at this point. Like this is, now we're getting into like how do we organize our workplace and like how much power do we give each individual vote in the workplace. Yes, they would have one vote, but ultimately what are the matters that they are tasked with voting on? And there's like even in unions, there's a structure, right? Like every single person does have a vote. The rank and file will always vote, but there's still a negotiations committee. There's still someone engaging in the contract negotiations.
Let me say this.
There's still elections being held inside of the union. Does that make sense?
It does. But here, does this make sense?
Yeah.
You're inside and I want to ask you, Dan, because I'm curious about your opinion. You're inside a big company. Let's just say they make cars. There's tons of employees there. The CEO, founder, he makes a lot more than the employees. Do you think that the leaders should make more than the workers, Dan?
Well, it just kind of depends on. I think there's nuance there because I think it really depends on what the company looks like, how it operates. Should the CEO, who is on a day-to-day basis working and managing a company, make more money?
He works the same hours as the production people.
I mean, with more responsibility, I think should inherently come with some more privilege. However, I mean, now. Are we talking about a CEO or are we talking about an owner? Because a lot of owners don't do shit.
No, I'm talking about someone who's working because the idea of ownership is probably different in a socialist.
Right, and the owners may be private or even maybe a public company.
The CEO. So you agree he should make more? So
it just depends.
There's not room for nuance. There's just not.
What do you mean?
If you're living in a socialist country, this shit needs to be like laid out. Like there's not room for nuance where in every workplace we're going to decide little different rules for everything.
Under capitalism where you have the freedom to
but there's rules like minimum wage.
But with rules, exactly, you would have the similar structure pegged to like.
I'm trying to ask you guys what the rules, and I keep getting these nebulous
like a maximum wage tied directly to your lowest paid employee.
This is what I wanted to say though. let's say.
Do you hear what I said?
I did.
Maximum wage tied to like there could be a situation where like a maximum wage could be implemented under a socialist structure to ensure that every single workplace has at least a maximum wage that is directly tied to the lowest paid worker and their full-blown compensations and benefits package they get.
Let's just go back to so the CEO, he earns more. He has more responsibility. Oh, Hassan, you said
I don't agree with that either. No. I don't agree with CEOs having more responsibility or should earn more for the record.
What?
What? You just said
no. If you're an owner-operator, and you're literally fucking... I was talking to Dan about this earlier before you got here, but it's like the difference between what you do and the difference between, like, let's say a jewelry designer is that a jewelry designer can outsource their fucking labor, but you are the main product here, which is why it's very hard for you to see it.
I'm using a different example.
Yeah, so if you're a fucking jewelry designer and you are responsible for all the beautiful designs in your jewelry that's like super competitive, everybody loves it, everyone wants to buy your fucking jewelry, you can still hire other people like designers to help benefit that process and make better jewelry.
Workplace where everybody's altruistic.
Yes.
They vote to say the CEO should make more money than us.
Yes. Well, the way that works would be slowly but surely as you bring on more people into your company or as you expand and you grow, okay, in a democratic capacity, you are taking away the earnings that you have right now and eroding it because you're giving it to some people that are coming in because you think that they're valuable enough to be able to pay that way, to be paid that way. But that process is being democratically voted on, and ultimately, you know that you're doing that because you're in your understanding. Later down the line, if you care about this sort of thing, you're going to make even more money. Or rather,
money shouldn't be a motivator.
Money should not be a motivator. You're right.
Why
like,
does
in my situation,
why
it's
does
not.
the CEO care if his company makes more money? He's not going to make more money.
No, it's in the long term, you are creating more stability this way because you understand that every expansion of your productive output, okay, every single piece of expansion on your productive output yields better long-term stability and more money if that's what you're fucking motivated by. But ultimately, that's not the main motivator, and it should not be the main motivator.
I think that's a horrible thing to say if you're considering socialism, that money's a motivator. That's like almost like taboo, I feel like.
No, don't worry about what other people say in the situation or what you think people will perceive from what I'm saying.
Let me go back.
Because that part is irrelevant.
Okay, so let's say in a world where the CEO makes more money, do you think it's a possible or even likely situation that the heads of these companies who make more money are going to want to influence the government and their workers to vote or support legislation that gives them more money or more influence? Is that a likely outcome?
Wait, can you ask that again? Sorry, I saw a comment saying you were rectangular, and it fucked my brain a little bit.
I think that I think that yes, and I think that speaks to what Hassan was saying. I think it speaks to what Hassan was saying earlier about why a lot of Marxists have criticism of social democracy, that lack of elimination of the capitalist profit motive part of the economy will naturally result in what you're saying.
That's my point. So thank you, Dan. In socialism, the money motive it's literally it's not compatible. It doesn't work because you're going to have people at the top who are going to want more. They're going to want more influence. They're going to want more power. They're going to want more money. And they're going to exert their influence, their status. Even if they don't make more money, they have status.
Yeah, they're going to be able to
influence.
Socialism is not egalitarian in the sense that there's like full-blown equity.
Problem here?
Socialism does not.
Socialism only exists when you remove the money motive, right? Dan?
Socialism and the way we understand socialism, yes, the money motive is. Now we're talking about.
Oh my God! How is this so bad at it? He can't even explain his own side. The money motive can still exist in socialism. You can be a socialist company that's more successful than another socialist company, and higher people in that socialist company are going to earn more money than other people in the company. The difference, though, is your relationship to your actual means of production. When you go and work for a company, you have an equity owner stake. That doesn't mean you've got the same voting power as everybody else. It doesn't mean you've got the same equity stake as everybody else. It just means that when you go to a company and you work, and the fruits of your labor are increasing the value of that company, you are directly benefiting from the increase of the fruits of your labor because you have an equity stake in the company. Now, you might be a really good artist and you go work for a better cooperative, or you go work for a better company that is making more money for all of the employers or all of the employees. Well, employees and employers, since you're kind of one of the same. But like that's the whole point. Like you can still make more money in a quote unquote market socialist environment. That's totally fine. You can make more money in that environment. You can make more money than other employees in that environment. None of this is inherently contradictory. I don't know how Hassan can't explain any of this. Jesus.
You don't want to remove the money motive
because I'm in the middle ground where I'm talking about like what's
realistic. You're a social democrat.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about.
Sounds like you are.
I'm talking about the realistic short-term period because I don't live in that. I don't live with that with that
I
operational
agree that if we
basis
lived
myself.
in
but I know that other people can't do that for the time being.
If we could just teleport into a utopian Star Trek world where money doesn't exist and everybody's equal, yeah, everybody would love that. But let's talk about real shit.
I am talking about real shit.
Well, that's that's all I'm trying to do too.
Which is why I'm giving you an example of like the interim period of moving towards socialization or a socialist transitional state.
I agree with that.
But the problem is when I describe that, you say, well, that's not socialism. I'm like, yeah, I know. Money being a motivator for certain people.
I'm saying once you move to socialism, the system, in my opinion, falls apart. It doesn't work because it falls to the same trappings. Because people are going to want more power. They want more influence. You're going to have capitalistic parties, thank you, Lena, that are going to want influence. You're going to have these external forces that want that freedom, that want that
there
individualism.
will always be, even in a democratic organization
And
in
I
the
believe
workplace, there will be people that make more, right? That's
I
what
believe
you're
the best that we can do is provide laws and regulations that guarantees people a fair, equitable life.
Let me ask you this.
Within those rules, I believe if you're operating within those rules, then you can do and make however much money as you want if you're operating the rules with a super progressive tax rate and everybody's provided for. Because if you want to move to a socialist system, I don't think that system actually works.
So the cultural differences that we see in countries that are still capitalist but social democratic versus countries like the United States of America that are hyper individualistic and have like very little social democracy is the argument that I'm making, is that with more social amenities and with higher degrees of socialization, people's attitude towards money and money making becomes drastically different. There are different motivators. Yes, status can be an important thing, but that social hierarchy designed around status has nothing to do with the productive output and has nothing to do with like your material reality. It has the capacity to change like the way people perceive you. It's like an attractive person versus like someone who is maybe not as aesthetically pleasing, right? Those things are going to exist. Like there's always going to, socialism doesn't mean like LeBron James has to be the same fucking height as like, you know, like a 5-foot person to play basketball. There's going to be different earners. There's always going to be some level of competition. This is not a bad thing. This is a good thing. This is how you innovate.
If there's different levels of earners, do you agree that that seems to be incompatible with Marx's theory of socialism? Because
no, it's absolutely not. Because and correct me if I'm wrong, Hassan, because you're more read on this than me, but all that is being said at the end of the day is that people are entitled to the value that they create.
Yes.
If somebody creates more value than somebody else, then they are entitled to more value.
The theory is wonderful.
Yes.
But we're talking about real shit, right? So when people make more, they're going to want to influence. I'm not saying everybody, but again, this goes back to what I was saying last week. There's people who are pathological. Okay.
Yes, there's always bad things.
And even in a socialist country, the sociopaths are probably going to float to the top just because they're willing to do everything that other people aren't, or they care about status and power where other people don't. And so these high-functioning, highly motivated sociopaths are going to want to influence government and business democracies to increase their power and influence.
Like they do now under a capitalist.
Yes, like they do now.
Right.
And that's why I think it's not realistic to expect that not to happen. And I think the most realistic and the best way is in between. Because capitalism.
Can I counter what you said?
Hold on. Capitalism doesn't work. We know that. And I think socialism doesn't work for the same exact thing. Because people are going to want to. The psychopaths are going to want to move it. And I think the only realistic solution is in the middle, where you just create a sandbox that is good for everybody and operate within that sandbox. Because everything else seems like a fantasy to me.
Every single thing that you've mentioned in both of these equations still revolve around human greed, turning humanity and the way people operate into capitalist little demons who are driven by profit. I do believe self-interest is a thing that happens. That's certainly true, which is why you have to have certain restrictions placed upon people that ensure that they don't get out of hand with the level of power they have. The way I describe it is this. In America, people always say labor unions are corrupt. They're actually really bad. They have a rigid hierarchy, and they are also susceptible to nepotism. This much is true in certain labor unions. There's been a lot of reform in the Teamsters and the UAW. Shouts out to that. No, what do you mean? Historically, there absolutely has been. I
don't say that about
unions. No, I know you don't say that about unions. My point is this, though. The way I counter that always is this. There's always going to be corruption. There's always going to be, bureaucratic red tape. There's always going to be nepotism. But I would much rather, if corruption is inevitable, I would much rather have a more just and more equitable, a more democratic process that at the very least, by its very design, like in the union structure, offers tangible benefits to the workplace, to the workers, rather than the corruption that we currently experience on a daily basis under the capitalist corruption.
That's the same thing I want.
Okay, which is why I said, you're not comfortable with socialism with capitalist characteristics.
I also think that socialism, when you consider corruption and high-functioning sociopaths, there's a lot more risk when you centralize the power at the top. Let's say one party for a dictatorship or tyranny.
No, that I actually don't agree with at all. I think that the democratic process in and of itself, whether it's a multi-party system or a single-party system or a two-party system like we have that yields like results exclusively, like the material changes that are made are done at the behest of corporations and the wealthy capital owners. No matter what, I think that a more democratic process is always going to be a better and more effective mechanism at fighting against centralized power and sociopaths that want to assume.
Well, but not democratic when there are people that want things that aren't socialism. Because remember, those people need to be tortured, murdered, raped, whatever they do in the gulags and the social prisons, or re-educated permanently, right? Remember, democratic process is only good insofar as you're voting for the things that we want. But if you try to represent a viewpoint that is contrary to our liberal ones, off to the camps and torture prisons for you.
Doom control. I think that if there are, again, if that is an inevitability, no matter what happens, I personally believe that more of a democratic process is going to be more effective. I'll give you an example.
I like democracy
DuPont Chemical. DuPont Chemical, under the capitalist, liberal, bourgeois democracy in the United States of America, was able to dump toxic waste into farmlands and destroy natural water supplies and delicate ecosystems. They still do it to this day.
This is where Ethan needs to pull out the 50 million fucking examples of the USSR, the whaling certain species into extinction, and the draining of the seas, the horrible irrigation practices, the mass famines. The bro, do you think that these countries have better track records for environmentalism than the United States?
We have PFAS, the forever chemicals, right? That is everywhere. We have microplastics, all that good stuff, right? In a situation where, let's say, DuPont Chemicals was at least democratically organized, the workers themselves have more power to say, what the fuck are we doing? You're destroying my fucking uncle's farm. You're destroying my backyard.
Right.
And that way they can put a stop to it, or at least demand changes to happen.
The really hard one now. The really hard one for Ethan is, what if the majority of the people in that area, though, are loving this company so much that they all vote for them to be able to destroy the environment? Democratically. Because then Hassan's going to go, well, okay, there'd be some government protections for that. Oh. So in capitalism?
Rather than expect the government to turn around and be like, all right, we're the EPA. We just realized that we are going to...
so you want less government or more government? Because socialism is all government.
No, that's not true, Ethan. Socialism is simply giving more power to the individual in that regard. You have a government that also
You're telling people you do not have a choice. You cannot run your business this way. You cannot.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a stronger government than we have. That's a really
but I think you want a stronger
government.
government than we have. You want a stronger.
Well, I want a stronger government.
You want market regulation.
Yeah, but it's even stronger than the one that I want. It says, here's your workplace. You must exist in it. So you're saying on one hand, the EPA is silly.
Well, the EPA,
but on the other hand,
in the situation with DuPont, if you want me to finish this, because it's not hypothetical, this is something that actually happened. EPA said, sorry, we're gutted. We don't have enough researchers. A lot of the researchers that work at EPA also end up getting jobs at DuPont, or vice versa. There's always a revolving door, tit for tat. Regulatory capture is something that these corporations do in an effort to monopolize and also improve their profit margins, as always. So in that structure, the EPA basically delegated DuPont with figuring out how toxic their pollutants were. And of course, until a journalist uncovered this entire thing, they were able to claim that these toxic pollutants weren't as bad, right? So there is no mechanism in the situation where we just,
capitalism.
Yeah, so we just sit there and we expect a government that is, appointing people into positions of power that literally have the material. No, listen.
Yeah, but in a socialist organization, this would be the same thing, right? Or are you saying in socialism there's no appointments? Is everything by direct democracy? What are we saying here?
We expect the government to enforce certain regulations and restrictions that they do not, because the people that are placed into that position of power have no interest or need in placing said restrictions, or maybe even lack the know-how.
Maybe people in the company don't want to make less money.
So
maybe they don't have access to all the data that the CEO
the beautiful
has.
part about that is that, at least historically speaking, what you're describing has never happened. What I mean by that is, when you look at the UAW, for example, it is supposed to be in their best interest to be anti-EV, and yet for some reason, Sean Fain and the UAW is perfectly understanding of a Green New Deal.
Hold up. That is absolutely not true. I believe it's the AFL-CIO, right, is the largest union of unions, collection unions in the entire United States, has staunchly stood against the expansion of, Hassan is pointing out that the United Auto Workers should be opposed to electric vehicles, and they and they definitely but they're still voting in favor of them because it's good for the environment. Fossil fuel unions have absolutely stood in front of turning on solar power plants and stuff because it's threatening some of their fossil fuel jobs. This has absolutely happened. The idea that unions are all pro green energy is super not true. Fuck. Can I find? I know there was a massive fight in Southern California to turn on a huge solar energy thing, and it was blocked by labor unions. I don't know if they ended up turning it on or not because I don't live there anymore. I'm so curious if UAW stance on electric vehicle. Also, I don't even know why the UAW would necessarily oppose electric vehicles as long as they're still getting to. I'm curious if the UAW, the United Auto Workers, have actually tried to fight against electric vehicles too. I wouldn't even believe Hassan on that. I'm so curious. This is a statement from Pence, but Pence, UAW pushing back rightly against Biden's electric vehicle policies. Former Vice President Mike Pence supported the United Auto Workers strike, saying the union is pushing back rightly on Biden administration's policies encouraging electric vehicles. I don't know if I would trust Pence here. Hold on. I haven't looked at this particular point. Do you really think Osama makes something? AP fact check. Biden overstates UAW's support of electric cars. President Biden glossed over important details and oversimplified the facts of his boast. In his boast about support for the from the United Auto Workers Union for his efforts to dramatically increase sales of electric vehicles. In his remarks Wednesday, Biden failed to say that the UAW did not endorse the EV targets he set in an executive order signed last month. The union support is also dependent in part on robust government support for union-made cars in the form of tax credits and legislation pending in Congress. While UAW has expressed general support for more EV sales, it has repeatedly declined to back goals urged by Biden as part of his ambitious plan to combat climate change. Biden last month. Remember, don't forget, at the end of the day, please do not ever forget this. Don't be stupid. Unions aren't here to help the country. Unions aren't here to make everybody's lives better. Unions aren't here to a union is a business, essentially. A union is a firm that represents its members that are workers. Unions exist ideally in order to give more bargaining power to workers against corporations that they work for. That's the whole point of union. A union can do good things and a union can do bad things. But at the end of the day, the unions, if they're not there for environmentalism or for socialism or for AOC or Bernie Sanders or Hassan Piker, a union is just there to represent the interests of its workers. That's it. Do not ever forget that. Don't ever forget that. That's all a union does. Okay? No more and no less. It could be good. It could be bad. That's all it does. Okay? The 50s, 60s, 70s, unions were there to enforce racism against their workers so that black people couldn't hold jobs. Today, you can argue that, unions exist to protect employers against firms that have way too much fucking bargaining power, that corporations have gotten really big and now employees on their own can't manage their labor against a big corporation who has way more, monopoly or at least monopsony power depending on the market, right? So a union can be good, a union can be bad, okay? A union can be teachers coming together and fighting for more wages because teachers are historically underpaid in the United States, or a union could be police officers hiding the fact that another police officer innocently murdered somebody because they don't want to all get in trouble, right? Unions can't be good, they can be bad, okay? It just depends. All a union does is it supports the workers that are part of the union. That's it. No more, no less. That's it. Don't ever fucking forget it. Don't ever forget it.
Been a company that has a purely socialistic hierarchy where they make
less. There's cooperative corporations.
Where they make less.
Like Mondragon is a good example.
Mondragon is not the best example, but okay. That's like a federation of cooperations. It's not one big co-op or whatever. But
and have they been levied with the task of deciding to make less money to help the environment?
Yes.
When?
Not to help the economy, but
my point is that saying one is better than the other is just theory. Well,
we are talking about simply theory because we both agree that capitalism doesn't work.
I think a strong EPA is great. In fact, I think you'd still need an EPA in a socialist country. I don't think it eliminates the need for the EPA.
Agreed, 100%. Which is what.
Exactly. So then, what is the point? What
I'm saying is, in that socialist formation, there is actual, real mechanisms of control that can put a stop to this kind of thing, rather than power accumulating in the hands of the few at the top of the corporate structure that then make these decisions, make these hiring practices to get these people in the revolving door.
In theory, what
I think in practice it would be great as well.
I think in practice it would be great, but I don't think it's possible.
But okay, so now
let's go back to this idea of greed,
first
right?
First you said the theory doesn't work. Now you're saying in practice it won't work.
No, because it's not. And what I mean is that you can't organize it that way. It won't work. You know what I mean?
But what I mean is that we do see different. You and
Ethan is kind of railroading Hassan on this debate now. It's a little awkward, but.
I are in agreement that higher degrees of socialization is a benefit. Okay, we're in agreement. You like unions. You want workers to have more control. You want workers to have more power, more say, and have more autonomy ultimately. So you and I are absolutely in agreement on that front. So to say that doesn't work in theory, I think betrays.
I'm talking about the workplace specifically.
Well, yeah, in the workplace as well. You're in agreement, no?
That's a huge difference.
We spend 80% of our adult lives in the workplace. This is the most important place for political organization.
Listen, we seem to have a disagreement about like greed. Like there seems to be this notion that people that live in a capitalist country. We understand greed and desire for wealth differently. Then an example I always see is like.
Also, keep in mind too. I'm sorry. I'm never, because he wants the credit for it, so I'll give him the credit for it. Okay, he is the biggest and baddest politics streamer on the internet. He's supposed to be the most knowledgeable dude on this shit, and he's kind of sort of getting reamed by Ethan Klein, who, not to knock Ethan, he's not stupid, but he's definitely not the premier politics doer on the internet. Just saying.
Native Americans, and that's part of why I can't conceive of a true socialistic country.
You're
as a union business agent, they do more than just what Destiny said. What do you mean, the Rotbringer? Please tell me what union you're a part of, or what industry, and what do you think you do that is opposed to what I just said?
Saying that like primitive communism or primitive accumulation, which has been the foundation of like societal development for much longer than the Industrial Revolution or post-Industrial Revolution capitalism. Right?
How big is DG compared to Hasan? I mean, it really depends. If we're talking about how big is DG in terms of like political relevance, we're basically nobody. We're probably some of the most irrelevant people on the internet. But if it's ever a day where Hasan feels sad or people are bullying him, then we are literally the strongest, most malevolent force on the internet. It really just depends on his mood from day to day, or the mood of whatever political person I'm wrestling with, I guess.
Right.
I've seen a lot of people say that greed is learned. That if you grew up in a pure socialist society,
no, absolutely, self-interest is a real thing that people have, but people can be taught, and people can learn that the collective aspects of societal development are far more important for self-interest than the individual, the hyper-individualistic, like, I'm gonna get mine, fuck everybody else.
So the point of going to this greed discussion is to talk about like human nature, in that I believe that in a perfect socialist society, there'll be forces of influence of wealthy people, people with status, people with power, wanting it more for themselves.
Mm-hmm. My argument
and I believe that that's innate.
Yeah. So first of all, I don't think that there's a biological imperative. I think that, like I said,
what's the difference?
Self-interest can be.
What's if you have a resource hoarding and greed?
Yes. So
how is accumulating lots of money different than resource gathering or accumulation?
I will describe it to you. A society that heightens collectivist understandings, okay, as a consequence of it being directly tied to our, at this point, our means of production and how we understand it, how we generate commodities, is going to have the exact opposite opinion on collectivism versus hyper-individualism in the way that you see it under capitalism. More people will have a collective understanding that like we are in this together and that we're working side by side.
Most, not all.
And then, yes, you're right. Mm-hmm. And the reality is that there will still be people who are self-interested, people who will still want to utilize the existing constructs, the existing hierarchies to their immediate advantage at the cost of others. But my point is that if that is an inevitability, which I agree, because there will be people who are sociopathic, criminals, charlatans, the lumpen pros and whatnot, okay? That will always exist. But even if that exists and I'm being very realistic about this, wouldn't it be better to have more mechanisms of control in the form of democracy and ensure a world in which everyone has more autonomy in a place where they spend 80% of their lives on?
It would be.
So yeah, then we're in agreement.
There's a rubber band, it's pulling us. The center of gravity is social democracy, capitalism, socialism, and the rubber band's pulling us in both directions towards the center. That's what I believe.
Okay. And my point always is that while marginal incremental reform in social democracies were made when there was actually a counterforce in the form of communists, trade unionists, anarchists, and the like, okay, they have been thoroughly eviscerated both in this country and in Europe as well, which is precisely the reason why you see Europe following the American attitude with its own conditions getting worse and worse year over year.
If you're willing to at least acknowledge that there are going to be innately, just as a product of the human condition, people that are born greedy with a desire to want to hoard resources. I don't know why you're afraid to say greedy. They're hoarding resources. If you're willing to admit that they're going to be bad people, then that's okay for me, because there was some takes I saw that pretended like that.
Don't have a conversation with people on Reddit who also themselves will probably change their ideas. There's people are very rigid, especially under the guise of anonymity online. It's not reflective of the actual conversation that you could be having that's productive.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that.
But
so let's move on.
I fall into this trap too. I yell at fucking people in my chat all the time because I sometimes lose sight of like sarcasm, and I can't get an accurate assessment because I don't know where you're coming from.
Really bad.
Okay.
But I want to continue this.
If you go to pee, I'm fucking, everyone's a communist after this. I'm just letting you know.
It's okay. You can have
While you're peeing, I'm just going to.
Maybe we should both go so you don't get the advantage.
No, I'm going to get the advantage.
You don't need to pee? You always pee before me.
No, I'm holding it in. No, I don't need to pee.
There's no shot you don't need to pee.
Yeah.
I'm not taking a pause.
Oh, God.
No, do not.
You want me to mute his mic?
That's fucked up. I'm reading the
Nope,
comments.
I have control. I have control.
Uh-oh. Hassan's
there you
reading
go.
the comments now. Oh no.
I think this has been a relatively productive conversation. I mean, God knows what people will do to pick this apart, because every single time we have conversations, it's very frustrating that like there is a secondary market, like a cottage industry of people who will like pick apart every detail and make these like grand assertions off of it, which is very frustrating because it's like I guess if you're from one of these communities out there, and there's plenty of them, there's so many people that make videos, right?
I mean, how we do it.
I mean, like, bro, you're doing a public podcast on the internet. Yeah, people are gonna react to your shit. You do it too. Why do you watch Ben Shapiro? Why do you watch Andrew Tate? Yes, this is what we do. Hello. Wait, what does this thing do? Does this just like give a trait to somebody? I forgot. Destiny, do you generally support unions? Even with police union example, couldn't that union be seen as positive pushback comparable to our company? So my feeling is that today capital is incredibly powerful. Corporations are incredibly powerful. I feel like it's pretty essential to have unions to negotiate on the side of the labor against capital, because capital has so much power today in the United States, probably in most of the Western world. So I would say, largely speaking, I think unions are good things, because we probably need more representation on the worker side versus the corporation side, which has plenty of advocacy for itself. So yeah.
I'm not going to say that the H3 podcast is. I mean, I would say the H3 podcast. We do that too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we do that as well. Yes, I do that as well. But like, my question always is like, if you're coming from one of these communities, like, don't you feel like you're duped a little bit by whoever you trusted into believing that there's like genuine discord and division here? Like,
talking about you.
Nobody thinks that like this podcast is probably not ending based on this disagreement. Didn't I say that? Like, you would be pretty unhinged to think that they're gonna like shut their podcast down over this. It's just funny to watch the premier political stream on the internet like be so utterly fucking clueless defending the ideology that he spent like so many years simping for against, no offense, but against Ethan Klein. That's just very funny.
You and Ethan having a falling out.
Or even, well, people didn't attack you as much. Surprisingly, it was more so me, even though you and him had a big disagreement as far as
well, nobody gives a shit about me. I mean, come on.
It was odd. I don't know, because you have a lot of differing opinions as well, but for some reason you weren't getting criticized as much. It's almost like people are more self-interested in certain directions.
It's almost like people have different expectations for people depending on how they sell themselves on the internet. Like, what? Like, do you think he's saying something insightful or profound there? But
I think there's definitely an element of that. People definitely have it out for you. And also, I think I saved myself a little bit by being at the beginning. I don't know if you caught how much of that conversation you caught, but I was very reluctant to engage in that conversation. And so, you know, anything that I said was kind of tinged with the fact that like Dan doesn't even really want to be here. So I guess maybe that softened people's anger. I'm sure people did get angry about it, but frankly, I was stressed about it afterwards just because like I don't know, I don't like being the center of attention, and so I stayed off of social media all weekend. I just didn't look at it. Yeah, Ethan just said they were glazing me up. Well, I'm sure some people were, but
yeah, they were saying Queen Dan, Wan. They were saying Wan.
Yeah. You know, maybe I'll take this as an opportunity to drop a little bit of knowledge I don't think I've ever actually shared on the show.
But,
knowledge.
My one side of my family was actually I am descended from a bunch of like hardcore Bolsheviks in the Russian Revolution.
I knew it.
Fuck, dude, that's you. That's right. We were actually trying to draw this out of you, dude. You're fucking done, son.
My last name Sverdlov is a bastardization of Sverdlov, who was one of Lenin's like lieutenants in the revolution.
You don't want me to find this out? Sure you want this to go out?
I mean,
I'm kidding.
we're talking like we're talking like great uncle or something here. You know,
it's
not really
like
directly connected.
your family's proletarian violence and his contributions have been noted, man. Yeah. We're Czarist here. How dare you?
sorry. I didn't want to piss off the whites.
So I know. I always see this picture and I'm always like, dude, he seems a little too comfortable in that outfit.
But like,
he's just feeling that uniform.
It's a Halloween costume. It's a Halloween costume. I'm not a weirdo. Thank you.
Red scare. Red scare.
Yeah.
Red scare.
Red scare.
Okay, so I want to move on to some more practical topics, but before we do that, I want to say this. I think this is a great conversation.
I agree.
And anyone that's mad, you're wrong. Anyone who's upset right now about this conversation, you're wrong. This is a good conversation we're having.
You know, people get heated, but I've been keeping an eye on the chat, and I think a lot of people have found this really interesting.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Wrong. The last time was a little jading, but I wasn't going to stop me. But anyway, also I want to emphasize that we agree on so much, like literally 95%.
In the practical application, in the short term, we are in agreement 100% of the way. If you like Bernie Sanders, then you're good with me. That's my opinion, because Americans do not have any class consciousness, and you have to build that. There are certainly differing opinions, like people who believe in accelerationism or whatever, but I truly think that America will only accelerate towards barbarism as it has, and not necessarily socialism, without any kind of without people believing that like they have any kind of autonomy in the workplace, any kind of means of collective bargaining in the workplace.
Okay, so anyway, my point is, if you're angry, you're being silly right now. This is good. This is a good conversation. And on my part, again, I'm pretty, ignorant. So this is good for me to kind of.
I think you undersell yourself. I think you are, more importantly than anyone else. Ignorance is one thing, but you're very curious and you're charitable when you want to learn things. And I think that is truly important, as opposed to being like, I've made up my mind. This is good. I mean, obviously there's still hangups.
Yeah.
But that's always going to happen. It's just this kind of dogma is too powerful. Everyone has their own journey.
The fact that we have like over 30,000 people watching like a really analytical,
nuanced debate about this.
Yeah, socialism and social democracy is pretty.
Yeah, I'm happy to see that. And like Hassan said earlier, I mean, I think there's been a massive sea change in this country in the last decade, largely thanks to Bernie Sanders. But I would even go further back and say like the Occupy stuff in the financial crisis is when it really started to creep into
Bernie Sanders probably did drive a bit of it. That's to be fair. To be fair, he did.
Consciousness. But like, I can't imagine having this conversation when I was like a teenager. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it would be a non-starter in this country. And
we're both radical, by the way, as we're saying.
Yes, you yourself in the eyes of the broader American public
I would be considered radical by
compared to someone like myself. Yes, people will go, oh, he seems reasonable, which I personally love. I think that's a fucking great thing.
I don't think
because the more insane I look, the more sane you look. And in the short term, what you're advocating for is unironically a good thing, which is why I also.
You look crazy for once. I look sane for once.
No, but that's my point. That's why I also.
We're working in the same.
That's why I also try to engage in movement building in the other direction as well. Whenever there's like. Because there's plenty of people who fucking hate me on to the left of me who have like radical, Maoist third worldist opinions or whatever the fuck. But I never give that any kind of light or any kind of attention or dunk on it because I feel like, yeah, they look crazy or whatever. Who gives a shit? Ultimately, if they are working in their own way to erode the power that capital has, then you're good in my book. And that even extends to social democrats to the right of me as well.
So just to summarize my point before we move on, it's essentially this. I believe social democracy can address all the issues that socialism attempts to address, and also offers a more realistic and a proposition for an organization of society. That's it. But let's move on.
It is a 12:20. I should just point out. I don't know how much. We've been going for about 2 hours here.
You need to bail. That's fine. But I have more questions.
Okay. What do you have? I'm down to keep talking.
Can I just point this out real quick? You sent this a moment ago.
Yeah, my dad got that.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Every time.
Every time.
One of my parents.
To be fair, Predicatons has gotten me as well in the past.
But this was my parents. Every time we do a clickbait title, they go, "Dan left. AB died.
AB's dead.
AB's dead.
What?
Yes. And in the role of a lifetime, Gary.
All right, let's talk about some like realistic or not realistic. Let's talk about some actual applications of socialism today.
Oh, God.
I don't want to understand it. So let's look at China. So I know China's done a lot of good for the massive amount of its populace. They uplifted them out of poverty. They gave them access to health and housing, and on the whole, the
improved literacy rates.
Yeah, everything.
Rapid urbanization, rapid development.
Exactly. The quality of life of the average Chinese person is absolutely catastrophically improved.
Mm-hmm. Catastrophically improved.
Now you tell me when I ask you,
seems pretty radical for you to even admit that, in my opinion. But okay.
Well, hold on. I've never denied that.
Okay.
But my question is, is China socialist or not? Because you always say China isn't a socialist country.
I think China, if you ask them, is a transitional socialist state. Do I think that it has certain socialist characteristics?
Who would
Absolutely.
say that in China?
What do you mean?
You said if you ask them.
The CCP, the government, the CCP. Oh, okay. That's like their main thing. Is that this is like
they say we're
socialism with Chinese characteristics. We are a transitional socialist state. Every communist party will always say that they are trying to implement a transitional socialist state. Yeah. Obviously, that socialism has to be adjusted to the material conditions and the needs that the people have. Socialism
last week you were telling me China isn't a socialist country, so I was curious what you meant by that.
It's not socialism in the sense that like there is collective ownership over the means of production across the board. It's state ownership that benefits the interests of the citizens, as you've also admitted or recognized.
It's not an admission. Yeah, I recognize
Well, it's an admission if you're living in the Western world, because in the Western world,
it's undeniable. It's just a fact.
Yeah, but people will use. Here comes.
I'm not one of those people. I'm not one of those people.
You know
what I mean?
Okay.
Well, okay. Here's what I'll say about
Taiwan.
Here's what I'll
statements.
Hold on, we'll get to that.
Before we get to
Here's what I'll say about China. China's economy was extreme.
Okay, this is boring. I think they're fun times. Okay, well, I'm glad I got to share these moments with you. It was super fun. My flight leaves at 7. I still have some like packing I need to do. It's like 6, or what is it? It's 3:30. Movies? You can watch one movie a night, okay? Good luck figuring out who and how. I should be streaming while I'm in wherever. I'm traveling all over the world. Not really, just the United States for the next few days. But I should be Oh, we got a good reference from good friend of the stream, Matt Walsh. Thank you, sir.
Yes, if only more men could be pathetic, disgraced cuckolds like left-wing streamer Destiny.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt Walsh. I feel like if I still did dono sounds, that would absolutely be a dono sound, but... Darius Xena rape review? Oh, wait, yeah, wait, what happened with that? I saw something on LSF, but I didn't...
No, run it back. You said turn around, let me get that ass, and squeeze that. You were naked. You were completely ass, booty, butt naked to begin with. Your dick was hard and you were shoving it in me.
What?
Yes.
This isn't even funny to joke about.
Because it's not, we're not saying it was rape. Obviously, we were kissing. But
Yeah, but that's
I'm just
not even what
saying,
happened.
okay, but you didn't get raped either.
You guys have rape
And that is what happened.
But I did tell you to stop multiple times. I didn't get raped, but I did. But I did say stop.
Are you saying you got molested now?
And then you did say you're hard, so it's okay.
No, I said, why are you hard? And you were giggling. And then you were squeezing my
Because
hand
I'm
there,
uncomfortable.
too. Yeah, and you were squeezing my hand there, too, being funny. Like, be fucking for real. That's why Danny looked over and saw and was like, he's enjoying it. Because you literally went like
Who is this guy in the background?
Stop.
You guys were laughing. You guys were like
And
laughing.
he was going like this. Like, you stopped playing victim.
Dandy? Danny? She? Sneeko? Amish person? Their son? Femboy? Howard Stern? Okay, good job, guys. Lil Dicky. Okay. Yeah, that's all I got. All right, I love you guys. I don't even know what my schedule's like for the next few days. I'll try to like update my calendar or tweet shit out or just be streaming. I might just be streaming it, so who knows. Why am I going tonight? I should just fly out tomorrow. No, I shouldn't. No, yeah, fuck it. I'll stream tomorrow. We'll figure it out. I love you guys. Ribbon, cappuccino,